Hi guys, I'm Brittany, the Cosmic Lunar Soul. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Welcome back to all my subscribers. Today I want to do a really fun video about how to pick a tarot deck for a reading. It seems really simple, but someone asked me this the other day, so I was like, okay, let me just do a reading on it, and hopefully you guys think it's an interesting question and topic as well. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to break this video into two parts. The first part is going to be if you're doing readings for a client. The reason I'm doing this first is because it's the shortest part. And then I will go into the second part, which will be how to pick readings, for yourself. You can also apply those for clients as well. That's why I kind of want to do the client one first and get it out of the way. So for clients, I feel like I'm breaking part one into two parts. We have the first scenario where you have a new client, someone who is new to you. You've never done a reading for them. And in cases like that, unless they have had readings in the past and kind of have an idea of the types of decks that they want, you can give them the option of your collection or, a few options. But generally, it's best if you just pick something out for them because they don't know what they're looking for yet. So in that instance, what I would suggest is picking something. If you're not using the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, I recommend picking something like pretty easy hitting, easy going, nothing too terrifying for new readers because we don't necessarily know this person very well yet. We're starting to just get an idea of who they are, and you don't want to scare them away by picking some super scary macabre deck and pulling the death card, right? So this could be decks kind of like the This Might Hurt Tarot or like the Lightseers. So the Lightseers is similar to classic Rider-Waite-Smith, but I think what's nice about this deck, especially for people who are new to getting readings, is that the people are people. They just look like regular human beings. They're in scenarios that people can sort of see themselves in a way, or positions. This one's a little more abstract, but this allows people to see a little bit of themselves in the cards. It makes it easier to relate to. And also, decks like this tend to be fairly neutral in regard to how they present to people. They don't come off as very abrasive or scary or too lovey-dovey, or it's a very neutral playing ground for getting started with a new client. It gives them the option to kind of ease into the world of tarot. And it's also a very just simple deck in the sense that if they go to another reader, if they're using anything that's like a sort of traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, or even going to the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the images aren't so far off that it would be unfamiliar, right? So if this person came to you and said, oh, the Three of Cups, that actually looks familiar, or the Chariot has familiar themes to someone, which of course the goal if you're selling your readings is to have repeat clients, but you never know. This could be a festival that you're traveling for and you're never going to see that person again. And your goal is to make their first session easy, in terms of not necessarily in terms of the answers you give, but just being easy to ingest the cards visually that you're presenting to them. Now, if you have returning clients, this insinuates that you've learned the person. They obviously have some history. This can also count for new clients to you, but they're returning to tarot and they've had a few different sessions, um, this insinuates that you have more leeway to try out different decks. And what I like to do is throughout this process of learning, like in the early phases when you're learning your client, focus on trying different decks based off of either the questions they're asking, or if you're listening to what the clients are saying, like you'll start to pull out themes that they talk about in the cards. Like, oh, this one, this card was really something would stand out to them, and you're like, oh, okay, there's another deck that's sort of similar but eases into that, right? So if I'm using like the light seers again, but they enjoy the really vibrant colors and um, really like the fact that there are some animals that pop in, then maybe I want to move over to the Meraki Tower, which has more animals, it's more nature based, and try that out and start to just go down the breadcrumb trail. Once you do that, your client will probably develop a preference. So, what ended up happening with one of my clients is that she enjoyed what I'll call the sass of the wild unknown. I tend not to start with the wild unknown I don't personify my decks, but I feel like the wild unknown brings out a very direct and sassy side of how you read or the answers that you're receiving, right? So while I don't think that the wild unknown deck, the inanimate object, is sassy, I think the readings you get from it can be quite sassy. And for newer people, that might not be the best scenario. Like, I have learned over time that I can't give live readings with that deck because it's just brings out the wrong side that the community is wanting in general. So she happened to really like that, and what ended up happening was we were going through when she was a client, I had way fewer decks, but we were going through different decks, and she this is what she said in the beginning of the session was like, I really need to be told about myself. And she's just talking to me. She doesn't know, one deck's personality from another. To her, she just is saying, like, to me as the reader, please be direct with me. So I tell her, like, okay, well, I have this deck. If you're willing to try it out, it can be a little hard hitting. She's like, no, I want that. And it became her favorite deck. She loved it. So allow your clients to allow yourself to pick up the cues from your client and start to curate things for them. And you can just openly, outwardly ask, like, did you like that deck? And if not, were there previous ones you liked, or what did you not like about it, or what did you like about it? And then go on from there. And then eventually the client will start to prefer a deck. I will say as a caveat, and this is different for every reader and every current, there are some times that you might want to gently suggest a deck. Like, there were points where I could tell that even though she needed to hear certain answers, there's a time for tough love, and then there's a time for gentle love. And you start to gauge that when you have returning clients, what they need, and you then have like a repertoire of stuff, and you can offer suggestions. So I feel like that was very easy, very quick, and to the point. And if you guys have clients, how do you pick your decks for your clients? How do you go through the phase of like new versus returning clients? Do you have just a specific go-to deck where you just start every new person, a person that's new to you, you start them off with that deck? Because that's also an idea as well. But You'll have to let me know. Comment below in the comments. All right, part 2. This is where a lot of the trial and error and understanding your different decks that you have. This is reading for yourself. You can take way more liberties, try way more things, which is why I wanted to do the clients one and just get it out of the way. But you can apply a lot of these things to your clients as well. Just maybe not as frequently. You don't want to like burn them out or freak them out or anything. So, I'll go with, let's start with like learning, right? So say you're new, maybe you have a few decks already because you've been trying to see what works for you. I would say, like, when it comes to learning, choose the deck that you can either go with like the classic version of the system that you're learning. So if you're learning with Rider-Waite-Smith, pick a classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck. If you're learning Tarot de Marseille, then pick a classic Tarot de Marseille deck. Same with Thoth. It's the easiest way to learn because then you can match apples to apples when it comes to the books and blogs and other resources that you use to learn. Now, that being said, some people just don't jive with the default of those decks. Now, I'm going to go back to my handy dandy example of the Light to Your Tarot. Is a great intro to Rider-Waite-Smith without being so I'll use the term classic, I guess. It's not the word I'm looking for, but it's a nicer way to verbalize what I'm thinking. So I think it's more relatable. Therefore, it's like easier to connect with the images. And while it might make matching the resources to the deck a little bit harder, the core things are still there within the cards. So learning, I think it's generally easier from my perspective. Now, this is just me. I think it's easier to just stick with a single deck. I made it hard on myself because I picked the Wild Unknown, because when I came into tarot, the Wild Unknown was hugely popular and people were toting that as a beginner friendly deck, which I personally disagree with. I think that there are very few people that did jive with it as their first deck, but I think that is the minority. Priscilla from A Life Full of Simplicity and I have had this discussion multiple times. She's one of the rarities. I anecdotally do not think that that's a good first deck, so sometimes we struggle. We pick a bad, like, it wasn't my first deck, but a bad deck to try to learn on. And you just kind of have to either decide to dig in and accept it or transition into something else. So what I ended up doing was transitioning back to my Rider-Waite-Smith. I bought like a bunch of Oracle decks. I held off on buying any more tarot decks before until I felt comfortable, essentially, with just a good milestone that I felt like I could start to branch out. So learning, I think it's very simple. Like, just stick to something, just stick to maybe one or two very similar decks. Stick to a single system, and then once you feel comfortable, start to branch out. Now, another way that you can decide to pick decks is like seasonal. So a lot of people will pick decks based off of the season that they're in. So say we go into spring and I want more spring decks. Priscilla actually recently did a video on her summer decks, so you can kind of see some examples of how people, or decks that people associate with different seasons. So for me, when I think of spring, spring is where I feel like nature is starting to blossom. It feels very like nature oriented. So I would probably pick something like my Meraki Tarot. And this video is just all tarot, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but Oracle is like different. The process is similar, but there's so many different Oracle decks that I'm not even going to try to open those floodgates. But so some people, for like to pick their decks based off of the season. They'll even rotate their entire collections. Robin from Robin's Reflections, she actually will like store her decks away until their specific season comes back around, and that's how she rotates her decks. Partially for organizational purposes and just space wise, but also that's just like a fun way to force yourself to use the decks that you associate with that season. Now, if you have a lot of decks, you might still have to figure out like, well, like that weeds it down to like 30 decks still. How do I pick out of that? But you still have a whole season and just set up a rotation and stuff like that. But if you have a regular size or a smaller size collection, then perhaps that is a easier way to go. Another popular method of picking a tarot deck for your reading is by the theme of the reading. So sometimes if people are doing something more like spiritual based, for instance, or if I'm just really wanting to do readings and feeling a little more witchy, I might pull out my Everyday Witch Tarot. It makes me feel a little more connected to my practice, and also there are cats, so it just makes me feel like, even though it's Everyday Witch, it's very witch oriented, but there are like what looks like regular people as well. So I feel like this is really nice. I like to use this when I am doing readings about more witchy topics, like spells and rituals that I have planned. Sometimes rarely, but sometimes I'll even incorporate some of these cards, specifically this deck, in the spells or rituals that I'm doing. And that's just because it helps me feel a little more witchy, more connected to my witchy practice. And yeah, so it's an easy way to pick a deck. Another example of themes is like shadow work is a really popular theme. So when I'm doing more shadow work style, I like to use darker decks. But then, so the deck that I'm going to show you works both for me, both for shadow work and also for spooky season. I like to use this for spooky season. And it's the Dark Reflections Tarot. So it has like, a spooky season because it has like the spider web design on the back. And then the cards are just so macabre. They're very just dark and spooky. And there's a lot of like zombies and skeletons and stuff in this. So I like to use this. It might seem weird, like, well, Bert, why would you use this for shadow work? Well, the guidebook has shadow work prompts in it, and I feel like this allows me to tap into more of my shadow side, and it's almost like seeing it reflected back in the cards, like as a physical representation of it. So when I want to do shadow work and I don't want to use my Oracle deck, I have a specific one that I like. If you know what it is, comment below. Then I will pull out this deck. Sometimes this can be a little too dark for shadow work, but you're getting the idea. At least now I'm starting to be able to simplify my options, right? I am limiting my analysis paralysis when it comes to picking a deck. I mentioned shadow work. The opposite side of that is when I want something more like affirmative but representative of me. So in my case, I would use the Black Femme Tarot because I feel like I see a lot of myself in that deck. It's very bright. In this case, it's a really good mood pick-me-up kind of deck. So you know, for you, like, what would that deck be? And uh, I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. So you can see it's just very vibrant and colorful and very representative of me. I just very much love this deck. I kind of, I don't pull it out regularly, but when I feel like I just need to see myself in something, I will pull this out. It's very fun. I just absolutely love the creator as well. This is by Letitia Shelton. She goes by Illuminati on social media. Super sweet. Um, but even the tower, you know, it's not as scary as some other tower cards, and it's just a really nice neutral deck. But also, I get to see myself in it. So we talked about seasonal. We talked about themes such as like more affirmative with the Black Femme Tarot, or shadow work with the Dark Reflections deck. We talked about more of like witchy topics with the Everyday Witch Tarot. Now we're going to get into some of the miscellaneous stuff. So sometimes I just want like a really fun themed deck. And usually these are readings that are fairly neutral, but I'm just looking for something light and really fun. And therefore, I will go with a themed deck. So in this example, I'm going to be using my Philly Tarot. I like to pull this out when I'm going to visit my family up in Philly, or if, you know, Philly's doing well in sports, or, you know, just feeling nostalgic for home or something like that. And I will just pull this deck out. This is a traditional clone. It's very easy to fit into any kind of reading that I'm doing. Very much, and I'm sorry, a clone of Rider-Waite-Smith. So it fits almost the same imagery, but with the theme of Philadelphia. This is just so nice. Like the cups are cheesesteaks. So if you've ever had a cheesesteak, like a real cheesesteak from Philly, if you didn't get it in Philly, then don't talk to me. Look, here we go. Being presented a cheesesteak. Oh man. Oh, the Empress is Betsy Ross. Oh, I must have reversal shuffled into this deck. But yeah, very easy deck to use. It makes me happy. Nostalgic for home. This is a good deck to use also for the masses, because it's just easy for most people to ingest image wise, because it's so much a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. The other example I'm going to give is the other half of my personality, which you might have guessed it, is cats. So this is the Cats Rule the Earth Tarot. Literally, like, when I'm just in the mood for cat stuff or whatever, I just pull this guy out. Also, another example of a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but instead of people, they're cats. This would be good, too, if you give pet readings. I've considered diving into that. I've done readings for my own space cadets, my own two cats, but I've never done it for other people's. I don't even know where to begin with that. If you guys have tips on doing pet readings, like for alive pets, I don't know about, actually, if there's a differentiation, I guess, in how you do them, let me know, because it's something new to me. But you can see here, just very fun. Oh, is this in order? Oh, it's not in order. Okay. Here is the death card in this. I love it. I love it. It's just so gorgeous. The strength card here. And, of course, got to show off the tower. This reminds me of the cat meme where the cat was rescued by the firefighter, and it looked like the cat was like, yeah, I burnt down the place and I'll do it again. If you I'm diving in, I'm showing my like internet age. So if you're familiar with that meme, comment below, let me know. Okay, guys, these were just really quick tips to pick out how to pick out decks, for a reading. I feel like as people are getting into the world of tarot, a lot of times they're like, well, why do I need more than one deck? You don't need more than one deck. But if I do have more than one deck, how do I decide the best deck for me at the moment? There's really no right or wrong answer, but hopefully this video did give you some ideas on how to make a system for yourself that allows you to feel a little more connected with the deck that you're picking. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.